Coming up on this Tuesday edition of Daybreak, President Park Geun-hye tells world leaders at the Nuclear Security Summit in The Hague that ending North Korea's nuclear program should be the first step towards making a world without nuclear arms. Documents showing Japan forced women to serve as sex slaves during the Second World War have been discovered in China. The evidence runs counter to Tokyo's claims the women were prostitutes. Plus, Malaysia says flight MH370, missing for more than 2 weeks, is assumed to have crashed in the southern Indian Ocean with no survivors. Daybreak begins now. Hello and thanks for joining us. To our viewers here in Korea and around the world, it's 6 a.m. on Tuesday, March 25th here in Seoul. I'm Mark Broom and you're tuned in to Daybreak. We begin in The Hague, where President Park Geun-hye has addressed world leaders gathered for the opening ceremony of the Nuclear Security Summit. Focusing on nuclear security, President Park highlighted the threats posed by North Korea. Our presidential office correspondent, Choi You-sun, filed this report from the Netherlands.
President Park Geun-hye has laid out a systematic plan to enhance nuclear security worldwide. In a 4-point proposal made during her opening remarks at the Nuclear Security Summit in The Hague, the president said the international community should take an integrated approach towards nuclear security, disarmament, and non-proliferation. She referred to Washington and Moscow's initiative that turned nuclear arms materials into nuclear fuel, saying it was a prime example of turning swords into plowshares. The Korean leader then said there's a need for regional cooperation on nuclear security, such as in Northeast Asia, where 23% of the world's nuclear power plants are in operation. President Park also talked about the need for countries to share technology and experiences to level the playing field. Lastly, she said more measures are required to prevent cyber terror attacks on nuclear power plants. President Park also made a point of commending international efforts to strengthen nuclear security. She mentioned countries voluntarily allowing the International Atomic Energy Agency to inspect their nuclear material protection systems. She also voiced concern about North Korea's nuclear materials getting into the hands of terrorist organizations and nuclear safety.
지금 북한의 영변에는 많은 핵시설이 집중되어 있는데 한 건물에서 화재가 나면 체르노빌보다 더 심각한 핵 재앙으로 이어질 것이라는 지적입니다.
The South Korean leader used the opportunity to cast light on the dangers of North Korea's nuclear development program. She said a nuclear-free Korean peninsula should be the first step towards a world without nuclear arms. Choi You-sun, Arirang News, The Hague.
Now, there's been a new twist to efforts to resolve Japan's wartime sexual slavery. A rare set of documents released by China adds more evidence that the enslavement of tens of thousands of Asian women and girls was institutionalized under a national law. Son Jung-in reports on how this development counters Japan's claim of legitimate prostitution.
China's Jilin Provincial Archives has released a letter written by a Japanese citizen who lived in China in 1941. It says that some 20 Korean women were forced at the time to serve at a comfort station in the Japanese Army compound stationed in northern China. A separate Japanese document written by the Japanese military police in Nanjing described 36 Korean women at a military brothel during World War II as special comfort women, which indicates that they were coerced into sexual servitude. These and 23 other documents were released by the Chinese Archives Administration through Korean media on Monday. Local experts say the set of rare evidence is more proof that Japan forcefully mobilized Korean females as comfort women under the 1938 National Mobilization Law. The Korean government has pressed Japan for decades to make a formal apology and provide compensation to the wartime victims, but Japan has refused. Historians say up to 200,000 women from Korea, China, and other Asian nations were coerced into sexual servitude at Japanese brothels during the war. 손정인, Arirang News.
South Korea and the United States are unlikely to agree on a date for transferring wartime operational control from Washington to Seoul within this year. Citing a South Korean government official, Seoul-based Yonhap News reports the two are likely to only settle on the conditions of the transfer by the end of the year. It was widely expected the two allies would be able to set the date at this year's high-level bilateral military talks in October. The transfer of wartime command was supposed to take place back in 2012. But in light of a series of North Korean provocations, it was postponed to 2015 upon South Korea's request back in 2010. Last year, Seoul once again asked Washington to delay the transfer date, citing growing nuclear threats from North Korea. Now, if all goes according to plan, South Korea will put pen to paper on a deal to purchase 40 F-35A fighter jets from Washington later this year. Our Defense Ministry correspondent Kim Hyun-bin has more on the special sales process, which could save the Korean government hundreds of millions of dollars.
Korea has announced plans to buy 40 F-35A fifth-generation fighter jets from Lockheed Martin later this year. The Defense Acquisition Program Administration said Monday that will go through the U.S. government's foreign military sales process and complete negotiations with Washington over prices and conditions in the third quarter. The FMS process gives a foreign country the ability to pay the amount specified set by the U.S. government at the time of delivery, not when the contract is signed. Korea's total budget for the fighter jet project is approximately 7.4 trillion won, or roughly $6.8 billion US dollars. A recent assessment by Lockheed Martin suggested that the price for one F-35A could drop to $80 million by 2019, when production is in full swing. It said that could eventually mean lower prices for international buyers, including Korea. The DAPA said it will monitor the development of the F-35, which has not been tested on the battlefield yet, and whether it fits with all of Korea's military requirements. With an eye on North Korea, the DAPA also approved a plan to purchase an unspecified number of RQ-4 Global Hawk unmanned aerial surveillance vehicles through FMS. The high-altitude, long-endurance unmanned aerial vehicle can operate in all-weather conditions and distinguish an object as small as 0.3 meters in size, while carrying 1,400 kilograms of internal payload. Experts say the state-of-the-art spy plane fits well with South Korea's missile defense system called the Kill Chain, which is designed to detect impending missile attacks and launch preemptive strikes. Kim Hyun-bin, Arirang News.
We start before the sun rises to bring you the latest stories out of Korea. We also lead the way with important global coverage. Stay on the pulse of what is happening with Daybreak.
Any remaining hope that their family members might be found alive have been extinguished. The relatives of the missing passengers of Malaysian Airlines Flight 370 have been told that the ill-fated flight ended somewhere in the southern Indian Ocean. In a news conference in Kuala Lumpur on Monday, Malaysian Prime Minister Najib Razak said the plane, missing for more than 2 weeks with 239 people on board, is assumed to have crashed hundreds of kilometres west of the Australian city of Perth with no survivors.
This is a remote location, far from any possible landing sites. It is therefore with deep sadness and regret that I must inform you that according to this new data, Flight MH370 ended in the southern Indian Ocean. We will be holding a press conference tomorrow with further details. In the meantime,
the announcement was based on fresh satellite analysis from Britain, which had employed a type of analysis never before used in an investigation of this sort. The heartbreaking news came as Australia said 2 objects have been spotted and that a naval vessel hoped to recover them soon. Despite an extensive multinational search for the missing plane, no wreckage has been retrieved. Korea is pushing to wrap up the second round of negotiations on joining the US-led Trans-Pacific Partnership, or TPP, as it's more commonly known. An official from Seoul's Trade Ministry says Korea plans to round off the deal next month after holding a series of two-way meetings with participating countries. The TPP is an effort by the US to increase its economic presence in the Asia-Pacific region. Negotiations for the trade deal involve 12 countries at the present time. The Korean government finished its first round of consultations with TPP nations early this month, after first expressing its interest to join late last year. Good news on the economic front, as Korea is now the world's second largest semiconductor supplier, outpacing Japan's market share for the first time since Samsung Electronics began producing semiconductors all the way back in the 1980s. Citing US market research firm IHS Technology, the Trade Ministry said Korea's global market share in the semiconductor industry rose 1.5 percentage points year on year to top 16% in 2013. The United States retained the #1 position, dominating more than half of the world's market share. Japan's dropped nearly 4 percentage points to settle at less than 14%. Despite the good news, industry analysts say Korea's semiconductor market still relies too heavily on memory chips. They say Korea should focus more on enhancing logic chip technology, which is used to control electronic devices. Now, in the wake of massive data leaks in recent months, insurance companies here in Korea are coming up with ways to better cater to customers who have had their personal information compromised. Starting this week, it will be easier for some affected individuals to receive damages for their losses, our Kwon So-ah reports.
Victims of financial fraud caused by hacking or phishing scams will be better compensated in the near future. 5 major insurance companies announced this Monday that they will introduce reforms to compensation measures so that their customers can receive compensation for damages more easily and more quickly. Hyundai Marine and Fire Insurance, Samsung Fire and Marine Insurance, and Dongbu Insurance will be some of the first to come out with the new insurance products this week. After assessing the move, smaller firms are expected to join in as well. Up until now, individuals have only been eligible to receive compensation when financial firms were found to be responsible for fraud or a leak. The change means they will be able to receive damages for losses even when it's not clear who is behind the breach of privacy. It comes as concerns are growing about personal data protection. Millions of Koreans have been affected by data leaks in recent months. Customers of KB Gungmin Card, NH Nongyap Card, and Lotte Card had personal information leaked, as did those who do business with Standard Chartered Bank Korea and Citibank Korea. As such, financial authorities plan to make those companies subscribe to the new insurance before others. Kwon So-ah, Arirang News.
The rise in the number of smartphones in Korea has given rise to concerns about addiction, and teens run the greatest risk. A study on internet and smartphone addiction conducted by the Ministry of Science, ICT and Future Planning shows around a quarter of Korean teenagers were at risk of smartphone addiction last year. That's a big jump of around 7 percentage points from 2012. For the overall population, the risk of smartphone addiction rose only slightly by 0.7 percentage points to just under 12%. The government instituted new measures this year to try and bring down these addiction rates, which include compulsory prevention education for elementary, middle and high school students. Now, while we're talking about media things, the Korea wave washed ashore in China this past weekend. A K-pop concert co-hosted by Arirang TV in Shanghai on Saturday featured some of the industry's hottest acts and drew thousands of fans from all over China. And, as our Yu Lian reports, the concert is just the first of many to come.
K-pop fans in China filled this 18,000-seat stadium on Saturday for the Simply K-pop Tour 2014 in Shanghai. The concert was organized by Arirang TV, Korea's only global television network, and Chinese satellite broadcaster Dragon TV, which reaches 1 billion viewers in China.
I prepared flowers for G-Dragon to cheer him up for the concert. I've been his fan for 6 years, and I hope he will visit China more often.
Some diehard fans didn't even give a second thought to traveling by car over 10 hours to the venue.
I drove all the way from Shandong. I've been waiting for 2 months for this concert.
I'm a big fan of crayon pop, so I decided to wear this helmet to the concert.
This is just a small glimpse into the K-pop craze that's been rapidly expanding in China in recent years, and fans didn't miss out on the chance to see their favorite acts in person. A total of 12 artists, including Big Bang's G-Dragon and Taeyang, are all here at the Mercedes-Benz Arena for the spectacular 3-hour concert. And this concert is the first of many more to come. Along with Arirang TV and Dragon TV, the concert was hosted by entertainment management agencies Intercrew based in Korea and JY Entertainment in China. The 4 groups signed a memorandum of understanding ahead of the concert, agreeing to promote more cultural exchanges between China and Korea. That includes more concerts and even television programs.
I'm excited to work with Korea's Arirang TV, and I hope to deepen our relationship through more projects together in the future.
The concert will be broadcast on Arirang TV to over 100 million households around the world on April 11th and 18th. Yurian, Arirang News, Shanghai.
Now, for a look at some of the other international headlines we're following at this hour, we're going to turn it over to our Eunice Kim, who's standing by at the news center. Good morning to you, Eunice.
And good morning to you, Mark. We'll begin in the Crimea on this Tuesday morning, where Ukrainian troops and their families have been instructed to leave the Black Sea Peninsula, effectively waving a white flag to Russian forces. The move comes as Russian troops seized one of Ukraine's last remaining military bases after Moscow formally annexed Crimea late last week. Russia's seizure continues to heat up the worst East-West crisis since the Cold War. And from the Netherlands, where the nuclear security summit is taking place, UK Prime Minister David Cameron announced the G8 summit will not take place in Sochi, Russia this year. Meanwhile, the White House just moments ago has said the U.S. and other world leaders have decided to suspend Russia's membership in the Group of 8. Earlier, Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov shrugged off the possibility, calling the G8, quote, an informal organization. Meanwhile, ahead of the nuclear security summit, Japan announced it will hand over to the United States hundreds of kilograms of nuclear material that could be used to create bombs. This includes all highly enriched uranium and separated plutonium, which can serve as the fissile material for a nuclear bomb's core. The joint agreement is in line with global efforts to minimize stocks of the potentially dangerous materials and outline plans for the United States, once received, to convert them into less sensitive forms. 528 defendants received the death sentence in an Egyptian court on Monday on charges that they murdered a policeman and attacked people and property, among others. They are among some 1,200 supporters of the Muslim Brotherhood on trial. This follows riots that took place during sit-ins in Cairo supporting President Mohamed Morsi, who was ousted in July last year. The defendants are expected to appeal. And over in Washington State, United States, the number of missing from a massive mudslide there has jumped to 108 from the initially reported 18. That's more than half of the town of Oso, which has a population of 180. County Emergency Management Director John Pennington said the figure could fall as some missing person reports could have overlapped. Meanwhile, search efforts do continue. County Fire Chief Travis Hotz called it a very grim situation. So far, 8 bodies have been recovered from the mudslide that swept the town. Several are critically injured.
And a good Tuesday morning to you all as we kick things off in the KBO, where the 2014 KBO Media Day and Fan Fest took place at Ewha Women's University. Once all the 300 fans got a chance to meet and greet the 18 players who came out to the event, it was time for everyone to find out what to expect from the 9 teams for the 2014 season. And just like everyone expected, many managers had a hard time choosing which team is the favorite to win the title going into the new season. But most of them did agree that the NC Dinos are the dark horse this season and might surprise everyone this year. And shifting over to short track, where according to several Russian newspapers, Victor An, aka An Hyun-soo's younger brother, might also receive Russian citizenship to compete. Now, in an interview with An's father, he stated that his youngest son, An Hyun-jun, who's 14 years old, might also opt to gain Russian citizenship in order to compete like his older brother. He added that if the Korea Skating Union prevents him from competing in Korea, he'll make sure that he'll train in Russia and compete for Russia just like Victor An. Meanwhile, fans in Korea are now afraid that the feud between the An family and the KSU might affect Korean short track in the future as well. Now, in the past few years, Korean sports have been rocked by different scandals, whether it be match fixing or sexual harassment. Now, the Ministry of Culture, Sports and Tourism will make sure to prevent this by offering a reward to the whistleblowers. The ministry announced that anyone who reports illegal activities related to sports being done in the nation will receive a reward ranging from 1 million to 3 million won, or roughly $928 to $2,785, judging by the level of seriousness. This includes match fixing, illegal gambling, assault, and sexual harassment. The ministry hopes that the call center will prevent more illegal activities from happening once again. And moving over to the LPGA, where Park Geun-hye went into the final round of the LPGA Founders Cup, hoping to win her first LPGA title of the season. And while she didn't, she still finished high enough to hold on to her #1 ranking. The #1 LPGA golfer struggled a bit on the third day, but still managed to finish at 16 under par, good for 10th overall. And while Suzanne Petterson finished 5 strokes behind her at 29th overall, Park Geun-hye will hold on to her #1 ranking for another week. Meanwhile, Kerry Webb, who shot a 63 on the final day, finished first at 19 under par, claiming her $225,000 prize. And finishing things off in the KBO with Game 2 of the best-of-5 semifinals between the LG Sakers and KT Sonic Boom. And right from the start, LG takes a slim 23-20 lead after the first quarter before heading into halftime with a 41-34 lead. And while KT's Ira Clark puts up game-high 23 points and 14 rebounds, LG never loses the lead and hangs on to take a 2-0 series lead with a 71-61 win. And that's going to wrap it up for me. This has been SJ. Have a great rest of the day and see you guys again for your sports needs.
Another brisk and pleasant day is in store, with the mercury staying in the mid to upper teens, and the sun will be hiding behind the clouds today. And compared to yesterday, we'll feel milder in the upper parts of the peninsula under cloudy skies, but cooler down south due to clouds coverage and showers. So the southern parts of peninsula will receive the showers from the late evening today, 20 to 80 millimeters of rain in Jeju, 5 to 40 millimeters of showers for the rest of southern regions into tomorrow. And even after the rain goes away, temperatures will not drop. In fact, it will get milder heading towards the end of the week. So do keep that in mind, and here are the readings for today. The morning low in Seoul is starting out at 9, but afternoon high will rise to 18. Daegu and Gwangju should top out at 19 and 16 respectively, while Busan should get up to 17. Now let's see how other regions are looking. It looks like down on Jeju and Dokdo will peak to 17, and Daejeon will climb up to 18, while the top temperature on Mount Kumgang will be at 11. Well, if you're in the southern parts of Peninsula, don't forget to have umbrella handy, and hope you have a wonderful day.
Well, thank you very much, Jion, for the weather there. And those are the stories we have for you at this hour. Korea Today is coming up in just over 30 minutes' time, and we'll be back at the same time tomorrow. Until then, goodbye.